Looks like there's something stuck in here.
The Insidious franchise is coming back in 2026, and this new chapter already feels like it is standing at a strange crossroads. On one side, Insidious Out of the Further looks like the sequel horror fans have been waiting for, darker, colder, more atmospheric, and built around a fresh idea instead of simply dragging the Lambert family back into another nightmare. But on the other side, the trailer also hints at something that could hold the movie back. The red-faced demon may be returning, and if that is true, then this franchise might be facing the exact problem it should have left behind. I say that because Insidious has always worked best when it made the unknown feel impossible to escape. The first movie did not need massive effects or endless lore to get under your skin. It used silence, shadows, strange movement, and the terrifying idea that a child's soul could be trapped in a place that felt both dead and alive. It was unsettling. It had mood. It had dread. And it made the Further feel like a real spiritual dead zone hiding right beside our world. Since then, the franchise has taken a bumpier road. Some sequels worked better than others. Insidious Chapter 3 is often treated as one of the strongest follow-ups because it found a way to bring emotional weight into the horror. Chapter 2, The Last Key, and The Red Door had their moments, but they also showed how hard it is to keep returning to the same mythology without draining it of mystery. By the time The Red Door seemed to close the Lambert family's story, Insidious felt like it had reached a natural ending. Not a perfect ending, maybe, but an ending. Now, 3 years later, Out of the Further is opening that door again. This time, the story is not centered on Dalton or the Lambert legacy. The new protagonist is Gemma, a single mother played by Amelia Eve, who lives with her daughter in the house where she grew up. From what the trailer shows, Gemma discovers that she has a gift connected to the Further. Like Dalton, she can move beyond the physical world, but her ability seems even more dangerous because she may be able to bring spirits back from the Further into the real world without needing a living body for them to possess. That idea is genuinely interesting. It changes the rules. It makes the Further feel less like a place characters fall into and more like a realm that can bleed into reality if the wrong person opens the wrong door. That is exactly the kind of evolution this franchise needed, because horror sequels survive when the mythology expands in a way that feels dangerous again. The trailer also makes it clear that Gemma will not be facing this alone. Lin Shaye is back as Elise, and that connection matters. Elise died early in the original timeline, but she became the emotional spine of the franchise. Bringing her back as a guiding presence for Gemma is smart, because it keeps the new movie connected to the old ones without forcing the story to become another Lambert sequel. But this is where my excitement gets complicated. The trailer includes a brief moment that appears to reference the red-faced demon, also known by many fans as the lipstick-faced demon. That image is iconic. His first appearance in the original Insidious is still one of the most memorable horror reveals of the 2010s. The design, the sudden cut, the silence before the shock. All of it worked. The problem is that every time the franchise has returned to him, the power has faded. He was terrifying when he felt unknowable. He was less terrifying when he became a repeated brand symbol. The more the sequels teased him, explained him, or brought him back as the ultimate face of evil, the more he started to feel like a mascot instead of a nightmare. Horror mascots can be fun, but they are not always scary. That is why Out of the Further needs to be careful. If the red-faced demon only appears as a shadow, a memory, or a small reminder of what still lurks in that realm, fine. That could work. But if the movie builds its entire third act around him again, it risks becoming another sequel that mistakes recognition for fear. Fans know him. Fans remember him. But recognition is not the same thing as terror, and Insidious was never at its best when it was just pointing at familiar monsters and saying, "Remember this?" What makes the new footage exciting is everything else. The Further looks cold, empty, and hostile again. The spirits appear more disturbing than flashy, and that is a good sign. There is also an endless couch for image that might be one of the franchise's creepiest visuals in years. It has that liminal, almost backrooms-like feeling, where something ordinary becomes impossible and then deeply wrong. Familiar comfort turns into a place where dead things watch you from the cracks. I also like that Gemma's ability creates a moral danger, not just a supernatural one. If she can bring spirits back, then what happens when grief gets involved? What happens when a mother wants to save someone? What happens when the dead do not come back the way you hoped? Those questions could give out of the further more emotional bite than a standard ghost story. If the movie uses them well, Gemma could become more than the latest person being haunted. She could become someone whose gift makes her both the only hope and the biggest threat. The creative team also gives this sequel some weight. James Wan, Lee Whannell, Jason Blum, and Oren Peli are back as producers, while Complay director Jacob Chase takes over behind the camera. That tells me the movie is not abandoning the franchise's roots. It is trying to reframe them, and that is the smartest possible move after The Red Door. The Lambert story had an emotional center, but it also reached a point where continuing it would feel forced. Out of the Further can keep Elise, keep the Further, keep the mythology, but still introduce a new line of horror that does not feel trapped under the old family drama. That is how a long-running horror series survives without becoming a museum of its own greatest hits. Still, the danger is obvious. Insidious has to decide whether it wants to move forward or keep reaching backward. The new protagonist, the new ability, the new spirits, and the renewed atmosphere all suggest a franchise trying to evolve. The red-faced demon tease suggests a franchise afraid to let go of its most famous image. That tension could either make the movie stronger, or it could expose the same weakness that has haunted several sequels before. For me, the best version of Insidious, Out of the Further, is not a movie that pretends the past never happened. It is a movie that respects the past, then walks deeper into the darkness. Let the red-faced demon be part of the mythology if he has to be, but do not make him the whole point. The Further is bigger than one demon. It should feel endless, unknowable, and full of things we have not even imagined yet. That is why I am cautiously excited. The trailer has real atmosphere. It has a strong new concept. It has Elise returning in a way that feels natural. It has a summer release date that could give horror fans one last cinematic nightmare before the season ends. But it also has one very familiar face lurking at the edge of the frame. And whether that face helps or hurts the movie may determine if Insidious truly has a new future. So the question is simple: is Out of the Further the beginning of a new era for Insidious? Or is it another trip through a door the franchise already closed? I think the answer depends on whether the movie trusts its new ideas enough to leave its old demon behind. And when this hits theaters on August 21st, I have a feeling horror fans are going to be watching very closely. Until then, keep your lights low, keep one eye on the shadows. And remember, in the world of Insidious, the scariest thing is not always the monster you recognize. Sometimes it is the thing waiting behind it.